Welcome, everyone. My name is Sherry Anderson, Optimization Specialist here at Rhinogram. During today's podcast, we will talk about virtual care and increased revenue. Joining me today is Dr. George Souris, a practicing orthodontist from Ohio. In the midst of all the challenges Ohio orthodontists and dentists are facing, Dr. Souris has been able to maintain his patient base and even grow during the mandatory shutdown of dental practices. He is one of the most positive, innovative, and think out of the box people I know, as well as a person who will go down in history as someone who leaves a written legacy of how to make orthodontics accelerate forward during a crisis and not focus on the negative during the one of the hardest times our entire country is facing. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Dr. Souris.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for that kind introduction. It's been a tough time for all of us, and I think moving forward, the changes that we make in this situation that we're in currently will benefit us in the big picture. So I know it all looks a little bit bleak now, but the changes we incorporate now will be a big benefit down the road. So, and again, just because we're concerned about the COVID-19 virus does not mean that any other care is less important. So dentists, orthodontists, medical providers, they can start to provide more care virtually. It keeps our patients out of the waiting rooms and allows them to remain safe at home while still receiving the care needed. We've been able to, over this pandemic, in the 6 weeks that we were closed down, to maintain a very tight, strong relationship with all our patients and have handled probably 99% of all the issues that came up through our Rhinogram and our selfies. So it's been a wonderful addition to our practice, and the value of it has shown up the most now in these tough times. I really appreciate it more than I ever have. So, and again, as we push forward, about 90% of the information that I need to know from a new patient from an in-office visit standpoint is what they can tell me and what I can see through selfies, and it can be done virtually. All of my orthodontic emergency patients now and over the pandemic can be triaged virtually, and some regular cases can be monitored this way as well with selfies. They'll need to come in at some point, I understand that, during treatment, but the telehealth platform lessens the amount of time this patient spends inside the office and decreases the amount of office visits.
Well, you're able to keep that personal connection, which is vital with patients and potential patients. So during this pandemic, we are required to physically distance from one another, but people still need social interaction, especially with their provider. Please share with us briefly how you're meeting that need.
Well, with Rhinogram, we can personally and securely communicate with our patients and potential patients without them ever stepping foot in our office, and have a permanent record of that conversation and those interactions. My current patients were already pretty much educated regarding virtual care prior to the pandemic. My website and social media also promotes and educates the general public on the virtual care advantages. For the patient, virtual care provides convenience and availability, and now, of course, the safety factor. And again, we've been able to incorporate these changes to the point where the patients almost feel like we haven't left the office. We want to provide the best care for our patients in the safest manner. We also need the revenue stream, obviously, to run our practice. So virtual care visits open the door up for billable opportunities that probably weren't there before. Now, I'd like to talk about a few ways we've been able to care for our patients while we've been home, whether it's during the pandemic or now post-pandemic, and back to work. Number one, the triaging emergencies. That's been the biggest thing. We've actually been able to determine through selfies and through texting who actually needs a visit after they have sent us the information we need to see. Oftentimes, I'd say 80% of the people who send us information about their problem can be handled at home without ever coming into the office. Smile assessments, virtual exams using selfies. That's been wonderful. We have a lot of potential patients that contact us, send us photos of their teeth, and we can determine what type of treatment they need, length of time, even quote them a fee, and it actually allows them to get an idea of where their treatment would go and what it would cost before they even enter the office. That's wonderful from the standpoint of convenience and also safety at this point. Recalls. We are 100% committing to all our recalls being observed through selfies every 6 to 10 months. They send us selfies, we let them know where they are in this process, waiting process, and we tell them we'll contact you again in 6 months, and we'll see when you're ready for treatment. Invisalign checks. Invisalign people are all about convenience. They want as few visits as possible, and checking on their movement and the fit of their aligners virtually through selfies and communication with Rhinogram has been wonderful. Even some orthodontic visits themselves. Oftentimes you might have a patient in who just wants their rubber bands checked, but see how their bite is at this point, and that's all you're really going to do. That also can be done virtually. I remember distinctly one patient who was wearing rubber bands over this pandemic break that we were taking, and I was concerned she was going to overcorrect. So I explained to them how to have her bite and what picture to take from the side of her teeth. And I, at that point, told her, I probably will tell you to stop your rubber bands at this point based on what I see from this photograph. That was huge, because then you end up with a patient who comes back and has overcorrected, and you've got to go back the other way to fix the overcorrection. Phase one appliances, obviously all expanders in my office. There are no physical visits done for expanders. All the process of turning and progress is checked on through selfies and texting. So broken appliances, same thing. You need to determine the need to see, do these broken appliances need to be fixed immediately? Is there something we can do temporarily? How fast do we need to bring in those people to fix those broken braces? That can always all be determined through virtual appointments and texting and selfies. Financial consultations, insurance questions. We do that wonderfully through our virtual appointments. Basically, we can quote them fees and make up NP's exam and one-stop appointment. In other words, we can make NPs just have one stop to our office to get started by taking care of all the financial questions and insurance questions through selfies and through discussions through texting. And of course, the last thing would be their appointment questions, changing appointments, fixing appointments, care instructions, all that. The majority of it at this point, even before the pandemic, was being and is being handled virtually in my office to limit unnecessary visits. Right now, of course, my parking lot, like I'm sure many of them in the orthodontic offices, is a virtual waiting room. Basically, the way we are running the process now to get people into our office when they do need to see us is we tell them to text us when they're in our parking lot. My staff will text them and tell them you're welcome to come up now. They come up to the door. My staff will open the door, greet them, give them hand sanitizer, supply them with a mask if they don't have it, take their temperature, and guide them directly to a chair where they will await treatment. We will treat the patient. They will then be sanitized again, masked back on, escorted out the back door, and they're told, don't worry about scheduling. When you get to the car, within 10 to 15 minutes, my staff will text you to schedule the next appointment. So you can see how wonderful the flow is and how you can keep the social distancing, keep the care going, yet minimize the potential problems and minimize and maximize the safety while using the texting as a tool. We basically have used our texting as a way to really promote more than anything our social distancing in there. The PPE is wonderful and it protects you when they're in the chair, but I think the texting is what allowed us to keep that social distancing very effective during this time here where we're dealing with the pandemic. So Sherry, both my staff and I are more connected now than ever with our patients and each other. That connection was evident in those 6 weeks that we were out. My wife and I were constantly dealing with our patients, and it was wonderful to feel like, hey, I'm not really missing, I'm just not right next to them. And that's kind of how we felt during this break is we're not really gone, we're just not near you. We can communicate just like with family and friends and from their preferred device, their phone, without them having to sign into a portal or download an app. So the great news is we're providing exceptional care at a higher level of productivity and efficiency.
How did the general population respond to the offering before the pandemic and now in the midst of it?
Well, Sherry, consumers say they would choose a provider and even switch to a provider that offers telehealth. 84% of people would rather text a provider than to speak with them on the phone. Because of the COVID-19, people are definitely more willing to try telehealth. And interjecting for our patients, they are embracing telehealth. And actually, for them, it's just a continuation of what we've already been doing. And any new patients to our office seem to embrace it just as well. So consumers were already demanding telehealth prior to the pandemic, which is evident by my patients. But they also want that convenience and that instant gratification. So now anybody who was somewhat resistant from a practitioner to a patient, they might be more open to say, let's give this a try. But our patients, once we insisted they come on board, have never been happier with it. So now more than ever, providers should offer virtual care and acknowledge the value of making a virtual connection with their patients. I'll be honest with you, many large insurance companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield are investing a lot of money in virtual care. They've made a permanent change in their remote healthcare visits. This recent period has proven virtual care can work for preventive, routine, and maintenance care. It brings better health. And even several major health insurers, including Humana, Cigna, and Aetna, have also expanded telehealth coverage. So it's something that was maybe being somewhat resisted, but I think this is probably going to make everything turn the corner and head in the direction of it being a norm and not an exception.
Google also has seen a dramatic rise in interest in telehealth and virtual care. You actually can now enter a virtual care offering in business profile. So keep your eyes open for that feature, and when it's available for your profile, for your practice, I really take advantage of that free offering and make sure your practice will be one of the first to pull up when someone searches in Google for telehealth and virtual care. And Dr. Souris, you have previously suggested that providers and staff must prepare to offer virtual care by adjusting our mindset, adopting a patient-first approach, and getting the message out there that you do offer it. With an increase in providers now offering virtual care, share with our listeners where to begin.
Well, Sherry, consumers are now more educated than ever before regarding modernized communication and virtual care options. It's transforming the healthcare industry. If a consumer reaches out to your practice via text and you don't text back, you're most likely lost an opportunity for a new patient, and you'll most likely frustrate a current patient as well. It's never too late to provide an exceptional communication experience. Providers must keep up with medical and dental technology for treatment. Virtual care is a service in that category. Don't neglect staying abreast of how people prefer to communicate and interact with you. In our practice, people prefer the texting and say they've never been more comfortable and happier in how they're interacting with us because of the fact that it can be done from anywhere at any time in any situation. So for the patient, it's all about convenience, and most often from the comfort of their home. In some rural areas, virtual care providers actually have access to the doctor or dentist that a patient might not have otherwise. It increases access to specialists, care, and every other opportunity that allows you to communicate in a situation where phone calls and other types of communication might be difficult. Of course, you have to have a HIPAA compliant telehealth platform. You have to have a scalable and enterprise grade platform as well. And you have to have a platform that you can communicate with your patients and your consumers the way that they want to be. So my landline phone number, website communication, secure channel, Facebook direct messaging, and my team staff communication is all routed to one place. So easy access, easy convenience. Efficiency and effectiveness saves time and money.
So offering virtual care provides benefits to doctors and staff. The convenience is a major benefit to them as well. In-office visits can be really time consuming and a wasteful way to address patients' concerns that they may be handled with a virtual care visit or text communication. Dr. Souris, share with us some examples of the valuable benefits to the doctor and to staff utilizing virtual care and modernized communication.
Virtual care eases the workload and definitely reduces the stress. My practice is definitely 100% more efficient and more effective and more productive. I've had my staff on more than one occasion since we've been back ask me how other offices that don't do it this way how have they handled this situation. They tell me I can't even fathom what it would be like to have handled this and be handling it now post pandemic shutdown without the texting and the selfies. They just can't even, in their brain, they can't grasp it. And I'm like, that's called evolution, ladies. We've evolved to a point where you can't even understand what it would be like to doing it the old way. So it definitely has changed our practice and revolutionized it. And it definitely attracts new patients because they love the convenience and the simplicity of learning about their care, the costs, the potentials, what can I do, how does it look, all that without even having to take the trouble to make a visit to the office. And they love that. And these are patients who might initially contact you and not really pursue it till later, but that initial contact was so easy and comfortable for them, they're definitely going to contact you later when they're ready to push forward. So I definitely have an increase in patient engagement because I provide a way for my patients to communicate from their preferred device wherever they are, and Rhinogram provides the compliance I need, the HIPAA protection and all the compliance and the safety. And we constantly remind our patients it's a safe platform. Don't worry, anything you send me is protected. So virtual care reduces obviously no shows, saves time and saves money. I will definitely agree that in many occasions, patients who might not have contacted us by phone to let us know they're going to have trouble making their appointment, not many miss that opportunity with a text. They'll text and say, I'm running late, or I'm going to miss the appointment. And we notice that no shows are pretty rare at this point because of that. Some examples of how we save time and money, obviously new patient exam, we talked about that. One visit consultation. Everything's handled ahead of time. They show up, they do their pictures, x-rays, their scan, their financials, and then the second visit, they're putting on braces. So it saves 2 to 3 visits, which normally take place if you're doing the old system of an exam, followed by records, followed by et cetera, et cetera. We try and combine it all into one visit because of the fact that we can carry on all these conversations and learn all the stuff that we need to learn and have them learn everything prior to their first visit. Triaging emergencies, we mentioned that. We're avoiding 15 to 20 visits a month to our office for emergencies. Retainer checks, don't need to do them anymore. Anything you want to check can be seen ahead of time. And a lot of these people might do nothing. Some might get new retainers, but you'd be shocked at how many people communicate with us about lost or broken retainers and taking and sending us selfies and letting us know, what do I do from here? So we're literally generating income through retainers without ever seeing the patient. They're just literally coming into our office to make retainers or not make retainers. Instant revenue without any effort. Invisalign checks, obviously watching their progress through selfies. Recalls, no need to eat up any time in your office with recalls when you can scan them and really monitor them virtually. And obviously, phase 1 follow-up, same thing. Our phase 1s do not really come into the office until they're ready for phase 2. We are virtually monitoring them in between phases. And of course, any questions that involve finances and insurance, all that's handled ahead of time. So really, even appointments, down to appointments and scheduling. The appointments that we schedule are a lot of times done virtually because the patient's in a hurry. So they rush out of the office. Even now we do it because of the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, many times the patients were in a hurry, they'd rush out of the office and say, I'll text you later to schedule the next visit. So it really, virtual care and monitoring outcomes can improve, virtual care can improve outcomes, not only just from monitoring, but by not losing the patients in the shuffle when the appointment gets missed. So oftentimes a patient might miss an appointment and they get lost in the shuffle and you're trying to track them down. We don't have a lot of that because through texting, we're able to really track and keep tabs on our patients pretty regularly. So we don't lose a lot of them, which extends treatment time and could end up in a worse outcome down the road. Obviously, doctors and staff have a much more flexible schedule working this way. My staff feel much more comfortable and not tied to the phone, so to speak. And after our workflow with Rhinogram and secure team messaging saves time and money, so you can communicate with your staff in a more efficient and effective manner. So I can't stress how much more effective, productive, and efficient we are as an office. And it's all thanks to the virtual communication with Rhinogram and the selfies that we use with our patients.
Well, Dr. Souris, there are always barriers for consumers, and they put a high value on time as well as cost savings. Convenience, ease, and affordability wins. The great news is providers today can remove those barriers and meet the needs and wants of consumers by utilizing Rhinogram. You are saving money and increasing revenue through modern communication and virtual care at your practice. Will you please share specifics on what percentage your annual expenses have declined and how your revenue has increased?
Yeah, Sherry, it's been a wonderful change for us. And I'll be honest with you, I like to play with numbers. So I would say at this point, we've probably been on Rhinogram over 2 years, maybe going on 3. We've probably decreased our annual expenses by 20%. That's just a clear overhead decrease because of decrease in visits, PPE, staff time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A much bigger, and that's a pretty significant number, but what's even more impressive is I'm telling you that we've probably had an 80% decrease in office emergency visits, and I'm not lying. Any type. They just don't come into my office for emergency anymore because they're all handled virtually. So that's been probably one of the biggest changes. And of course, the annual revenue has increased by 25%. What can I attest that to? Not just decreasing office visits, but increasing starts because of the one visit start, the virtual handling of everything ahead of time, which honestly allows people to become enamored, so to speak, with your office. They're like, this is great. I love this office. I love how they're handling things. And I'll be honest with you, most of my new patients that contact me never look elsewhere beyond my office. They just immediately say, I'm staying here and let's get forward with this. So I think it's a combination of the one visit consultations and the fact that you're impressing them with what you're doing and they never look elsewhere. And if they've been referred to you, this is the place they're coming. So I think all those things together have increased my revenue, probably I would say by 25%. And the net profit, of course, because some of that is going to be into overhead, is probably at least 15% increase in net profit. And again, those numbers kind of got a little bit slanted now with our shutdown, but I know there's pent up demand out there. So I want to just mention as a closing thing here to every office that don't be discouraged. I think there's a pent up demand out there. I'm sensing that it will come flooding back when people get comfortable. And I think that's going to be maybe July, August is how I feel. And I feel that if you're on a virtual platform, you're going to get a lot more attention a lot faster. So I feel like I've already had an advantage in the area because people have contacted me and said that, hey, some people aren't taking exams. Are you taking an exam? Guess how that communication happened? Through a virtual platform, through Rhinogram. And we immediately said, yes, we are taking new patient exams. We have been preparing for a while. And that same patient came in and started 3 days later. Now, without that virtual platform, that patient probably doesn't communicate with me. So I just want to stress that there's a pent up demand. It's there. It's going to have to come back. And when it does, if you're on this type of platform, you will be head over heels ahead of anybody around.
Well, Dr. Souris, your results really make everyone want to stand up and shout for joy, especially during this time. Thank you for sharing the impact virtual care and modernized communication is having on your practice and providing statistics that teledentistry does not mean lowering your standard of care, but it's providing a higher level of patient care, satisfaction, and outcomes. Workforce efficiency does mean happy, healthy doctor and staff, and that equals dollars. With telehealth services on the rise, please join Dr. Souris and I as we have a conversation on adopting best practices in our next podcast. If you do have questions for Dr. Souris, or if you'd like to learn more about the robust features of Rhinogram, please email Sherry, Sherrie, at rhinogram.com. Thanks again, Dr. Souris.
Thank you, Sherry, for having me.